I moderated a panel this week packed with heavy hitters. Avril Haines, the U.S. Director of National Intelligence, the Secretary General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, President Duda of Poland, and the Deputy Prime Ministers of Ukraine and Canada, Yulia Sviridenko and Krista Freeland. I started with a question to Ms. Haines. I wanted to know the U.S. intelligence community's perspective on where the war is now and where it's headed.
The way we would say it is not a stalemate, but really a grinding conflict at this stage, where quite literally we're talking about hundreds of meters being fought over in the context of the front lines. But I think from our perspective, both militaries obviously have challenges. It will be extremely important for Ukraine to receive essentially military assistance and economic assistance moving forward in order for them to be able to continue to manage what they have been heroically doing. And on the Russian side, we see also significant challenges: ammunition, supplies, morale, exhaustion, some dysfunction in the leadership, and so on, things that are, I think, making it more difficult for the Russian military as well.
President Duda, it is striking to me how strong the West has been, and other parts of the world as well, in supporting Ukraine. Do you think that the response is strong enough? And more importantly, what everybody worries about is will it stay strong?
This assistance we've just sent to Ukraine is still not enough. Ukraine needs more our efforts, needs more our aid, and we should mobilize ourselves to help them, because the situation is really difficult. And I'm afraid now it is, and it will be in a few, maybe months, maybe weeks, a crucial moment, next crucial moments of this war. And this moment will answer for the question, will Ukraine survive or not?
Krista, do you worry about the staying power of the West?
So the short answer is, of course, it would be stupid and naive not to. But I think we're going to do it. And I think, of course I worry. I am ultimately extremely confident. And I'm extremely confident, first and foremost, because of the magnificent job Ukraine is doing. And as President Zelensky very crucially pointed out, supplying Ukraine with the money it needs to win the war is ultimately in our own self-interest. So I'm a finance minister. And if you were to say to me, what is the one thing that G7 finance ministers, G7 governments this year could do that's actually in our power, right? We don't control COVID. We don't control global supply chains. We don't control whether there will be immaculate disinflation or not. One thing where we have some real practical levers is we can help Ukraine win clearly, definitively. And if we do that, if that happens this year, you know it as well as I do, Fareed, that would be a huge boost to the global economy.
Mr. Secretary General, you heard the President of Ukraine say he would like to be a member of NATO. Will you let him in?
NATO's position remains unchanged, and that is that Ukraine will become a member of NATO. Then, of course, the main focus now is to support Ukraine, to ensure that Ukraine wins the war and prevails as a sovereign, independent, democratic nation in Europe. It is extremely important that President Putin doesn't win this war, partly because it will be a tragedy for the Ukrainians, but it will be very dangerous for all of us. Because then the message to authoritarian leaders, not only to Putin, but also other authoritarian leaders, is that when they use brutal force, when they violate international law, they achieve what they want. And that will be a very bad and dangerous lesson. It will make the world more dangerous and us more vulnerable. And that's the reason why, if we want a negotiated peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine, we need to provide military support to Ukraine. That's the only way. Weapons, they are the way to peace. And that may sound like a paradox, but the only way to have a negotiated agreement is to convince President Putin that he will not win on the battlefield. He has to sit down and negotiate. Nobody knows how this war will end. Most likely it will end around the negotiating table. What we do know is that what happens around that negotiating table is totally dependent on the strength of the battlefield. And if we want Ukraine to prevail, then they need the military strength.